When I built my Yamato model, I had not yet figured out how to properly work with photo etch. For the majority of the photo etch in the kit, you can install it with pretty low level skills actually. But when it came to these radars, which consist of multiple layers of fine photo etch, it just completely overwhelmed my skills at the time, and I got this horrible mess. I am now tired of looking at this, and I now am going to fix them. This is one of the things about models. Just because you've constructed it many years ago and completed it, doesn't mean you can't come back in a few years' time, revisit it, and make modifications to improve it. Of course, not all modifications will be as easy as others, and some will just be impossible. But in this case, where the radars are high up on the ship in a nice open exposed area, the modification, or at least improvement of them, is going to be easy. The first step is to carefully snap them off of the model using tweezers, and then clean up the rangefinders using a bar file. Once the horribly clogged up radar is removed, I give it a bath in acetone. The acetone will slowly dissolve the paint and superglue. This will take some time. Now that all the components in this antenna have been disassembled, you can see why it gave me some trouble several years ago. There are quite a number of very finely detailed components that need to be attached to each other in very close proximity. It's just a prime candidate for getting glue to go into all these gaps and clog everything up. Once all the components are properly cleaned and acetone has evaporated off, assembly can begin, or rather reassembly can begin. Starting with this mesh that goes in the base of this support structure, I hold it in place with tweezers and then bond it to the structure using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. When I initially constructed these antennas, I was not using extra thin superglue or a wire to apply the glue. Working with extra thin superglue and applying it with a wire is the technique that makes constructing very fine photo etch possible, without clogging it up, that is. I don't need to apply a lot of the glue to bond this mesh in place. Once the base mesh is installed, the meshes that go on the side of the structure are installed using the exact same technique. The squiggly photo etch then gets placed inside on top of the base mesh, and once again clamped in place with tweezers and glued down using more extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. Already you can see how much less glue there is on this and how it isn't clogged up at all. Once the antenna itself is constructed, the support struts are reinstalled at the base of the antenna. These are glued down using extra thick superglue that I apply to the top of the support and then place in contact with the antenna. Once all the support struts attached to the base are installed, the support struts that attach to the back of the antenna is installed. Once again, this is glued in place using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. I had broken off the first antenna and then repaired it individually because I didn't want to mix up parts and then create a mess in that sense. So after fully constructing and completing the first antenna, I then break off the second antenna and repeat the process. I remove it with tweezers, sand off the glue on the rangefinder using a bar file, give the antenna an acetone bath to remove the old paint and superglue. This antenna is a lot better than the other one though, but I can still improve on it, so I'm going to go through the same process anyway. Once fully cleaned and dried off, assembly can begin. Once again, the mesh is installed in the base and glued down using extra thin superglue. Then the squiggly photo etch is installed on top of the mesh and also glued down using extra thin superglue, followed by the support struts that go on the base of the antenna, then the support strut that goes on the back of the antenna. Now that assembly is complete, painting can begin. First, I repaint the top of the rangefinders where I had filed off the old glue. One of the reasons why this repair is possible for Yamato is that it uses a standard color. This is IJN Grey Cure Arsenal XF75. After repainting the rangefinder, the antennas are also repainted using XF75. After the paint has dried, the antennas are reinstalled on the rangefinder using extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. Once properly attached, a little bit more touch-up is done using XF75, and then the repainted area is sprayed with Mr. Color GX112 Gloss Super Clear UV Cut. After giving the gloss coat sufficient time to dry, I dilute panel line, 1 part panel line to 2 parts solvent, and apply that to the antenna to help bring out the details. Once the panel line has dried, everything is sealed in with a matte coat. This is Tamiya XF86. Once the matte coat has dried, I do some very gentle highlighting using white weathering powder. That completes the repair. As you can see, it is so much better now. All that horrible clogged photo etch is gone. Moving on to the next correction, we are going back to HMS Hood. One ship that was built many years ago and one ship that was completed a month ago. Both are getting corrections in this video. This is also a simple correction. There are some support struts that need to go under this main rangefinder that I didn't install in the build, so I'm going to install them now. To create these support struts, I'm using 0.5mm brass wire. There is an element of trial and error here. I start by cutting a section of brass wire to the approximate length, but slightly long, and file it down until I get it to the perfect length, and then duplicate it for the other side of the ship. Each side of this rangefinder has two supports. They both connect to the same point on the underside of the rangefinder tube, and then spread out and attach to the base of the rangefinder itself. Because the base of the rangefinder is curved, this means that the support struts will be different length, so I repeat the trial and error process for the second support strut. Once I'm happy with the lengths of the support struts, I glue them in place using extra thick and extra thin superglue. Due to the area where these support struts are installed, painting with an airbrush will be complicated, so I've decided that I'll rather just brush paint them. Also, I'm going to need to blend in the paint with the base of the rangefinder, so I rebrush paint that area as well. This is very thin paint, so painting with a brush will not leave streaks or anything like that. Once the weathering process is complete, this brushed area of the superstructure will look identical to the rest of the superstructure. The first step in that process is to seal in the area with a gloss coat. Once again, this is Mr. Color GX112 UV Cut Super Clear. After that, panel line is applied to help bring out the details. The panel line is then sealed in with Tamiya XF86. And finally, white weathering powder is brushed over the area, completing the installation of the support struts. In the next video, I'm going to start the construction of the Type 7 U-boat. If you don't want to wait for the scheduled release of videos and want to watch them when they're uploaded, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. If you would like to support the channel, like and subscribe. And as always, questions are welcome in the comments. Thank you for watching. Cheers.